The sun beat down mercilessly on Willow Creek, its rays glinting off the community pool like a taunt. Why did Karen think she could bully her way into anything? I stood by the gate, key in hand, my heart pounding but my resolve ironclad. Karen's voice sliced through the humid air, shrill and unyielding. "You can't keep me out, Emma. I pay my dues. This is my pool too." Her designer sunglasses perched atop her head like a crown, her manicured nails jabbing toward me. I didn't flinch. "You're not on the list, Karen. Rules are rules." Her face twisted, a storm brewing in her eyes. She whipped out her phone, dialing with a flourish. "We'll see about that," she spat, her voice dripping with venom. I watched her, calm but seething inside. She had no idea what was coming. The neighborhood had always been a quiet haven, a place where kids rode bikes and neighbors waved over picket fences. But Karen? She was a hurricane in human form, storming through Willow Creek with her demands and complaints. As the new HOA president, I'd seen her type before, entitled, loud, and convinced the world owed her everything. The pool was our pride, a sparkling oasis funded by years of community dues, locked to keep out freeloaders. Karen, though, believed locks didn't apply to her. She'd moved in 6 months ago, a self-proclaimed queen of the cul-de-sac, and hadn't paid a dime toward the pool's upkeep. Yet here she was, banging on the gate like it was her birthright. I'd warned her twice before. The first time, she'd laughed, tossing her hair and calling me that control freak newbie. The second, she'd screamed about her rights in front of half the neighborhood. Now, she'd escalated, calling the cops. Fine, let her. I tightened my grip on the key, its metal warm against my palm. I wasn't just guarding a pool, I was guarding principle. Karen didn't know I'd spent weeks preparing for this moment, digging through records, rallying neighbors, and uncovering secrets she thought were buried. She thought she was winning. She was wrong. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder. Karen smirked, her phone still pressed to her ear. "They're coming, Emma. You're done." I met her gaze, unflinching. The neighbors had started to gather, drawn by the commotion. Old Mr. Jenkins leaned on his cane, his eyes narrowing at Karen. Sarah, the single mom from across the street, clutched her daughter's hand, whispering something I couldn't hear. They knew what I knew. Karen wasn't just fighting me. She was fighting all of us. The police cruiser rolled up, tires crunching on the gravel. 2 officers stepped out, their faces unreadable. Karen launched into her performance, voice quivering with fake outrage. "Officer, this woman's denying me access to my own pool. I'm a homeowner. I have rights." She pointed at me like I was a criminal, her words a rehearsed script. The older officer, a grizzled man with a name tag reading Daniels, glanced at me. "Ma'am, can you explain?" he asked, his tone neutral but his eyes sharp. I nodded, stepping forward. "She's not on the access list. She hasn't paid the dues. The HOA has clear rules." Karen scoffed, but I saw a flicker of unease in her eyes. She didn't expect me to be ready. I handed Officer Daniels the binder I'd brought, pages of HOA bylaws, payment records, and a highlighted section showing Karen's delinquency. "She's been notified multiple times," I said calmly. She refused to comply. Daniels skimmed the documents, his brow furrowing. Karen's confidence wavered, her voice rising. "This is ridiculous. I'm being harassed." The younger officer, a woman named Carter, raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, calm down. We're just sorting this out." But Karen wasn't calming down. She was spiraling, her words a torrent of accusations. I stood silent, letting her dig her own grave. Then came the twist I hadn't planned for. Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. "Officers, there's more you should know." The crowd hushed. Karen froze, her phone slipping slightly in her hand. Sarah's eyes locked on hers. Karen's been lying about more than just the pool. My heart skipped. I'd spent weeks building my case, but Sarah's words hinted at something bigger, something I hadn't uncovered. The air grew thicker, the neighbors leaning in. What did Sarah know? And why did Karen suddenly look like she'd seen a ghost? Sarah's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Karen's been using the community garden shed to store her stuff, without permission. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The garden shed, a small, weathered structure behind the pool, was sacred to Willow Creek. It housed tools for our community plots, where kids learned to plant and retirees grew tomatoes. Using it for personal storage was a violation, but Sarah's tone suggested something worse. I saw her sneaking in there last week, Sarah continued, her daughter clinging to her side. She's got boxes, furniture, things that don't belong. I checked the HOA logs. She never asked anyone. Karen's face paled, her lips parting but no words coming out. For the first time, she looked cornered. Officer Daniels turned to her. "Is this true, ma'am?" Karen stammered, her bravado crumbling. I needed a place to store some things temporarily. It's not a big deal. But it was. The shed was communal property, funded by the same dues Karen hadn't paid. Her entitlement wasn't just about the pool, it was a pattern. I felt a surge of vindication, but Sarah's revelation sparked a new question. What else was Karen hiding? I glanced at the binder in Daniel's hands. My evidence was solid, but Sarah's bombshell added fuel to the fire. The neighbors' whispers grew louder, their trust in Karen eroding before my eyes. Daniels handed the binder to Officer Carter, who flipped through it with a frown. "You've got a lot of unpaid dues listed here," she said to Karen. "And now the shed issue. Anything else we should know?" Karen's eyes darted, searching for an escape. "This is a setup," she snapped, pointing at me. "Emma's out to get me because I called her out at the last HOA meeting." I almost laughed. Called me out? She'd ranted about my uptight rules while dodging every question about her own compliance. But I stayed calm, letting her unravel. The officers exchanged a look, clearly unimpressed by her theatrics. Sarah wasn't done. "There's more," she said, her voice steadier now. "I saw her selling community property online. Lawn chairs, tables, stuff from the pool area." My jaw dropped. I'd noticed a few items missing during my inventory checks, but assumed they'd been misplaced. Selling them? That was theft. The crowd gasped, and Mr. Jenkins muttered something about no shame. Karen's face flushed red, her hands balling into fists. "That's a lie," she shouted, but her voice cracked. Officer Daniels raised a hand. "Ma'am, we'll need to look into this. Where's the shed?" Karen's eyes widened, panic setting in. She hadn't expected this to spiral so far. I led the officers to the shed, the crowd trailing behind like a jury. The lock was new, not the one the HOA used. Karen fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking as she opened it. Inside, the shed was crammed with her belongings. Boxes labeled Karen's office, a gaudy chandelier, even a rolled-up rug. But tucked in the corner were two of our poolside tables, their HOA tags still attached. Carter's flashlight beam caught them, and she shook her head. "This doesn't look good," she said. Karen tried to explain, her words a jumble of excuses, but no one was listening. The neighbors' faces were a mix of shock and disgust. I felt a pang of pity for her, just a flicker, before remembering the months of her bullying, her demands, her lies. Daniels turned to me. "You've got records of all this?" I nodded, pointing to the binder. "Everything's documented. Non-payment, violations, notices. She's ignored them all." Carter jotted notes, her expression grim. "We'll need to file a report," she said. "This could be theft, trespassing, maybe more." Karen's knees buckled slightly, but she caught herself, her defiance flickering back. "You can't prove anything," she spat. "This is my home, my community." But her words rang hollow. The community she claimed was turning against her, their trust shattered by her greed. As the officers took photos of the shed, I caught Sarah's eye. She gave me a small nod, a silent thank you. I hadn't expected her to step up like that, but her courage had tipped the scales. Karen's lies were unraveling faster than I'd planned, and I hadn't even played my trump card yet. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with a text from Tom, the HOA treasurer. "Got the email ready," it read. My heart raced. The email wasn't just about dues or stolen tables. It was about Karen's biggest secret, one she thought no one would ever find. I wasn't just fighting for the pool or the shed. I was fighting for Willow Creek, and I was ready to end this. The crowd dispersed as the officers finished their notes, leaving Karen standing alone by the shed, her face a mask of fury and fear. She glared at me, her voice low. "You think you've won, Emma? This isn't over." I didn't respond, just watched her storm off toward her house, her heels clicking on the pavement. The neighbors' whispers followed her, a chorus of judgment. I should have felt triumphant, but unease gnawed at me. Karen wasn't the type to back down. She'd retaliate, and I needed to be ready. My phone buzzed again, another text from Tom. Email sent. Check it. I slipped away to my car, pulling up the message on my phone. What I read made my blood run cold. Tom had uncovered Karen's application to join the HOA board last year, before I'd taken over as president. She'd submitted forged documents, claiming she'd lived in Willow Creek for years when she'd only been here months. Worse, she'd listed a fake address to dodge property taxes, funneling money through a shell company. It was fraud, plain and simple. Tom's email included scanned copies of her application, bank records, and a paper trail leading to a shady LLC. This wasn't just about pool access or stolen tables. Karen had been playing a long game, and I'd stumbled onto it. My surprise for her was about to get a lot bigger. I drove home, my mind racing. The HOA meeting was tomorrow night, and I'd planned to present my evidence there. Karen's unpaid dues, her violations, her lies. But this new information changed everything. If I exposed her fraud in front of the neighborhood, it could destroy her. Part of me wanted to. Her entitlement had poisoned Willow Creek for too long. But another part hesitated. Ruining her could tear the community apart. I needed to be strategic, not vengeful. I spent the evening preparing, printing documents, and rehearsing my speech. The meeting would be a showdown, and I couldn't afford to lose. By morning, the neighborhood was buzzing. Word of Karen's shed stunt had spread, and Sarah's accusations about the stolen furniture were the talk of every group chat. I walked to the community center, my binder heavier with Tom's new evidence. Neighbors filled the room, their faces a mix of curiosity and anger. Karen arrived late, her chin high, her eyes daring anyone to challenge her. She took a seat in the front row, her posture screaming defiance. I stood at the podium, my heart steady but my palms damp. Thank you all for coming, I began. Tonight, we're addressing some serious issues about our community, and one resident in particular. I laid out the facts methodically. Karen's unpaid dues, her unauthorized use of the shed, the missing pool furniture. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as I projected receipts and photos onto the screen. Karen's face remained stone cold, but her fingers gripped her purse like a lifeline. Then came Sarah's moment. She stood, her voice clear. I found one of our tables listed on eBay last month. The seller's username was WillowQueen22. Guess who that is? All eyes turned to Karen. She shot up, her voice shrill. This is slander. You have no proof. But Sarah held up her phone, showing a screenshot of the listing with Karen's email attached. The room erupted. I raised a hand for silence, my heart pounding. It was time for the real blow. There's more, I said, my voice steady. We've uncovered evidence of fraud in Karen's HOA application. I projected the forged documents, the fake address, the LLC. The room fell silent, the weight of the revelation crushing. Karen's face drained of color. You can't do this, she whispered, but no one heard her over the neighbors' outrage. Mr. Jenkins stood, his cane shaking. You lied to us. You stole from us. Others joined in, their voices a wave of betrayal. Karen looked around, searching for allies, but found none. Then came the twist that shook me. Tom, who'd been quiet, stood up. Emma, there's something else. He handed me a USB drive. I found this today. It's security footage from the pool. My stomach dropped. I hadn't known about any footage. I plugged the drive into the projector, and the screen flickered to life. There was Karen, late at night, prying open the pool gate with a crowbar. The date stamp was a week ago, before our confrontation. She hadn't just demanded access. She tried to break in. The room exploded again, and Karen bolted for the door, her heels echoing in the stunned silence. Karen's exit left a void in the room, the air thick with shock and anger. I stood at the podium, my hands trembling as the security footage looped on the screen. The grainy image of her crowbar against the gate felt like a final nail in her coffin. Neighbors shouted over each other, demanding action. Call the police again, Mr. Jenkins yelled. Sarah nodded, her eyes blazing. She can't get away with this. But I raised my hand, my voice cutting through the chaos. We need to stay calm and do this right. She's already under investigation. Let's trust the process. Inside, though, I was reeling. The footage was a bombshell I hadn't expected, and it made my next move even riskier. After the meeting, I met with Tom and Sarah in the community center's back room. Tom's face was grim as he handed me a printout. "This came from the county records office today," he said. It was a lien on Karen's house, filed 2 weeks ago for unpaid taxes tied to her LLC. The fraud wasn't just about the HOA. It was deeper, Messier. "If we push this," Tom warned, "her life falls apart. Foreclosure, maybe jail." Sarah's eyes softened. "She's awful, Emma, but is this too far?" I didn't know. Karen had bullied, lied, and stolen, but ruining her completely felt like crossing a line. Yet letting her off felt like betraying Willow Creek. I went home, the weight of the decision crushing me. My phone lit up with texts from neighbors, some demanding Karen's head, others urging caution. I sat at my kitchen table, the binder open, staring at the evidence. The forged documents, the eBay listings, the footage. It was overwhelming. But one detail stuck out: the LLC's address. It wasn't just a fake, it was tied to a vacant lot outside town. Why? I grabbed my laptop and started digging, cross-referencing county records and old HOA files. What I found made my heart race. The lot had been owned by Karen's ex-husband, sold off in a bitter divorce. She'd used it to hide assets, dodging taxes and HOA dues while playing the victim. The next morning, I called Officer Daniels. "There's more on Karen," I said, explaining the LLC and the lot. He sighed. "This is bigger than we thought. We'll need to bring her in for questioning." I hung up, my stomach churning. I'd wanted justice, not a witch hunt. But Karen had left me no choice. By noon, the police were at her house. Neighbors watched from their porches as she was escorted to the cruiser, her head down, her defiance gone. She didn't look back. I stood by my mailbox, watching the car disappear. The victory felt hollow. I'd exposed her, but at what cost? That evening, the neighborhood felt different, quieter, heavier. Sarah stopped by, her daughter in tow. "You did the right thing," she said, but her voice wavered. "Did I?" I asked. "She's losing everything." Sarah touched my arm. "She did that to herself, Emma. You just held up the mirror." Her words stuck with me, but the unease didn't fade. I'd planned to expose Karen's lies, but the fraud, the footage, the lien, it had snowballed into something bigger. I wasn't just the HOA president anymore. I was the one who'd brought her down, and I wasn't sure I liked who that made me. The next day, the HOA board met to discuss next steps. The pool was secure, the shed cleared out, but the community was fractured. Some neighbors praised me, others whispered I'd gone too far. Tom suggested a community meeting to clear the air. "We need to heal," he said. I agreed, but my mind was on Karen. What was she doing now? Was she plotting revenge, or had she finally broken? I didn't know, but I knew Willow Creek couldn't move forward with her shadow hanging over us. I had one last card to play, a gesture to show we were better than her games. I spent the evening drafting a letter to the neighborhood, my words careful but honest. It wasn't about gloating or punishment. It was about rebuilding. I proposed a community day, free pool access, a potluck, kids' games, to remind us why we fought for Willow Creek. The letter went out that night, and by morning, my inbox was flooded with replies. Neighbors offered to bring food, organize activities, even repaint the shed. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. Karen's collapse wasn't the end. It was a chance to start over. The community day dawned bright, the sun casting a golden glow over Willow Creek. The pool sparkled, its gates open wide for the first time since the confrontation. Kids splashed and laughed, their voices echoing across the lawn. Neighbors set up tables with homemade pies, casseroles, and lemonade, the air thick with the scent of barbecue. Mr. Jenkins sat in a lawn chair, telling stories to a circle of kids. Sarah manned the face-painting station, her daughter giggling as a butterfly took shape on her cheek. I watched from the sidelines, my heart full but heavy. This was what I'd fought for, but Karen's absence loomed like a ghost. The letter had worked. Neighbors had rallied, not just to celebrate, but to reclaim what made Willow Creek special. The shed was repainted, its shelves restocked with gardening tools. The missing pool furniture was replaced, funded by a crowdfunding effort Tom had quietly started. But the whispers about Karen hadn't stopped. Some said she'd moved out. Others heard she was fighting the tax lien in court. I didn't know the truth, and part of me didn't want to. I'd exposed her lies, but the victory felt bittersweet. Had I gone too far? The question gnawed at me, even as laughter filled the air. Midway through the day, Sarah pulled me aside. "You need to see this," she said, handing me her phone. It was a local news article, posted that morning. "Willow Creek woman faces fraud charges," the headline read. My stomach dropped as I skimmed the details. Karen's LLC, the forged documents, the tax evasion. The article mentioned the HOA dispute, quoting Officer Daniels. "The investigation started with a neighborhood complaint," he said. My name wasn't mentioned, but I felt exposed. The community day suddenly felt like a distraction from the storm I'd unleashed. Sarah squeezed my arm. "You did what you had to," she said. "But did I?" As the sun set, I took the microphone for a brief speech. The crowd hushed, their faces warm with gratitude. "Willow Creek is more than a place," I said, my voice steady despite the lump in my throat. "It's us, our trust, our effort, our home. Today proves we're stronger than any one person's mistakes." Applause broke out, but my eyes caught a figure at the edge of the crowd. It was Karen. She stood by a tree, her face unreadable, her clothes plain and unassuming. No sunglasses, no defiance. Just her, watching. My heart raced. Why was she here? Had she come to confront me, or was she saying goodbye? I stepped down, the crowd's cheers fading as I approached her. Up close, she looked smaller, her eyes red-rimmed. "Emma," she said softly, her voice stripped of its usual venom. "I'm leaving. I just wanted to see this." She gestured to the pool, the kids, the neighbors. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to lash out, to remind her of the chaos she'd caused. But another part saw a woman who'd lost everything. Her home, her pride, her place. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," I said finally. She nodded, her lips tight. "I know." She turned and walked away, disappearing into the dusk. I stood there, rooted, the weight of her words sinking in. The party continued, but I felt a shift. Karen's collapse wasn't just her downfall. It was a mirror for all of us. We'd fought for our community, but we'd also judged, gossiped, and divided. I vowed to do better, to lead with fairness, not vengeance. As the stars emerged, I joined Sarah and Tom by the pool, their laughter pulling me back. Willow Creek wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And we'd rebuild, not because of Karen's mistakes, but because of our strength. Weeks passed, and Willow Creek began to heal. The pool stayed open, its rules enforced, but its gates welcoming. The shed was back to its purpose, filled with seedlings and shovels. Neighbors greeted each other with renewed warmth, the sting of Karen's drama fading like a bad dream. But I couldn't shake her final words. "I know." They haunted me, a reminder that justice, however deserved, carried a cost. I threw myself into HOA work, organizing cleanups and fundraisers, determined to keep the community's spirit alive. Yet every time I passed her empty house, its for sale sign weathered by the sun, I wondered where she'd gone and who she'd become. One morning, a letter arrived, addressed to the HOA board. The handwriting was neat, unfamiliar. I opened it, my breath catching as I saw the signature. "Karen. Dear Willow Creek." It began, "I'm writing to apologize. I was wrong about the pool, the shed, the lies. I thought I could bend the rules to fit my life, but I broke your trust instead. I'm starting over somewhere new, trying to be better. Thank you for showing me what a real community looks like, even if I didn't deserve it." My hands shook as I read. It wasn't redemption. She'd still face consequences, but it was a glimpse of humanity I hadn't expected. I shared the letter at the next HOA meeting. The room was quiet, the neighbors' faces a mix of surprise and skepticism. Sarah spoke first. "She's got a lot to make up for," she said, "but it's something." Mr. Jenkins nodded. "Maybe she'll learn." We didn't forgive her, not fully, but the letter softened the edges of our anger. It reminded us that people could change, even if it took losing everything to get there. I tucked the letter into the binder, a final piece of the story we'd all lived through. The community day had sparked a new tradition. Every month, we held a gathering, sometimes a barbecue, sometimes a movie night by the pool. Kids ran wild, parents swapped stories, and even the shyest neighbors joined in. I watched it grow, my heart swelling with pride. Willow Creek wasn't just a place. It was a promise we kept to each other. I'd fought for that promise, and though the battle had been ugly, It had forged something stronger. Karen's collapse had been the fire. We were the steel. One evening, as I locked the pool gate, Sarah joined me. "You ever think about her?" she asked. I nodded, staring at the water's calm surface. "I wonder if she's okay." Sarah smiled faintly. "You're too soft, Emma. But that's why we trust you." Her words stayed with me, a reminder that leadership wasn't about being right. It was about being human. I'd made mistakes, pushed too hard, but I'd also learned. Willow Creek had taught me that. As fall settled over Willow Creek, the leaves turned gold, and the air carried a crisp promise of change. The community thrived, its wounds healing with every shared meal, every laugh, every small act of kindness. I walked the neighborhood at dusk, the houses glowing with warmth, the sound of kids playing in the distance. The for sale sign on Karen's house was gone, replaced by a young family's moving truck. They waved as I passed, their smiles full of hope. I waved back, feeling the weight of the past lift just a little. Willow Creek was moving forward, and so was I. I kept Karen's letter in a drawer, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Her mistakes had tested us, but they'd also shown us our strength. We weren't perfect, gossip still flared, disagreements lingered, but we were trying. And that was enough. At the next community day, I watched Sarah's daughter dive into the pool, her laughter echoing. Mr. Jenkins handed me a slice of pie, his eyes twinkling. "You did good, Emma," he said. I smiled, my heart full. "We did good," I corrected. He nodded, and we stood together, watching our home come alive. Karen's story wasn't ours to finish. Somewhere, she was starting over, carrying the lessons of Willow Creek, whether she wanted them or not. But here, we built something better. Not just a pool or a shed, but a community that stood together, even when it hurt. I locked the gate that night, the key heavy in my hand, and whispered a quiet promise to keep fighting for this place. For us. For the messy, beautiful thing we called home.